All right, so we are looking at today's lesson. We are seeing how to sort of like plug in some of our numbers to actually write effective programs. So I was saying this the other day, but I feel like the weight loss class is really good at teaching like how to actually work with clients. Like it's really good on the subjective, like here's some of the challenges you're going to face. Here's like this, I think it does a really good job of that. But what I think it does a really poor job of is actually teaching program design. Like it just doesn't, it just doesn't have the time, or it's just assuming that, the programs have already been built. You know what I mean? So like, we're going to go ahead and do a program design intensive today. We're going to take a look at like what this looks like. Ourselves. And so when we're talking about like writing programs, right, NASM is going to encourage you to use this sheet right here. This is our OPT template, right? And basically it's just like a very simple workout sheet. You don't actually have to use this, but what's nice about it is that it has everything you need, right? It's got empty spaces for the exercise. It's got empty spaces for the sets, reps, tempo, and rest, right? And those 4 acute variables right there are probably the main ones that you have to deal with, right? There is one more that's also very important, which is intensity, and that's a percentage of 1 rep max. So physiologically, we already talked about this. If you guys remember going back to our exercise physiology class, we talked about the differences between different rep ranges and different intensities, right? Like if you look at like intensities for strength versus endurance versus hypertrophy, right? A lot of personal training certifications are going to break this down the same way. What we generally tend to see is there's a difference between strength, endurance, and muscle growth, right? The things that you do for strength, the things that you do for growth, and the things that you do for endurance are slightly different from one another. And so you can actually see like here's our repetition ranges, right? Anywhere from 1 to 6 reps if you're trying to build strength, anywhere from 8 to 12 reps if you're trying to grow muscle, and anything above 15 reps if you are trying to build endurance, right? So these are sort of the rep ranges that we're kind of working with here. And everybody kind of agrees on those rep ranges. Like you'll see that like, and I actually really like this version. I'll see that you'll see versions of this version of these charts every now and then. I think this is a really good one, which is like, this is the original version, which is kind of the way we just broke it down, where it's like there's strength, there's growth, there's endurance. The reality is like, it looks something more like this. All of it results in growth, guys, right? Like if you're doing like stabilization, which is phase 1 of the OPT, it doesn't get enough credit for how good it is at like muscle growth, but it is very, very, very good for muscle growth as well. But you see, right? Like there's strength, there's endurance, there's muscle growth. And like, I kind of love this picture version here, right? Like this is sort of at the foundation of everything. But yeah, like there's definitely more muscle growth with the endurance side. And there's definitely more strength with this side here. And then, growth itself is kind of in the middle where these two things meet, right? That's sort of the perfect middle ground there. And so you think about strength, that's going to be anywhere from 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max in terms of intensity. You think about like endurance. Now they're laying this out as 15 plus reps. That does leave a gap. So NASM is going to say, well, it's 12 plus reps because, growth is achieved at a maximum of 12. So 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, right? Like that's going to be endurance according to NASM. So we're going to see a slightly different version of this, right? Well, in fact, we'll go ahead and just, I'm going to go ahead and copy this image and then we'll sort of modify it to make it look like NASM, right? So if we want to make this sort of the NASM approach here, right? I'm going to go ahead and just delete this and we'll go ahead and delete this. I'll go ahead and delete this and we'll put NASM's take on this. So NASM says that the best strength for strength is 1 to 5 reps. That needs to be much bigger. Right, NASM is going to say that 1 to 5 reps is probably the best for strength. 6 to 12 reps is going to be best for hypertrophy or muscle growth. And then 12 to 20, or just if you want to say greater than 12, but we're going to say 12 to 20 is the best for endurance. And they really did say that, like, you know, once you get to 20 repetitions, other stuff that you're gaining there, it doesn't quite grow quite as quickly. And so it's like, we're just going to put a cap on it. And so they put a cap of 20 reps on there. So those are some of our basic rules. So these are things that you want to have in your brain whenever you're writing a program. If you get a client that comes to you and, you know, they are hiring you for, you know, muscle growth, well, then we know that, like, you know, we're probably going to focus on this 6 to 12 repetition range, which is why you think about, like, every magazine workout you've ever seen. Like, I remember before I got into, like, you know, actually classes about, like, how to write programs and stuff like that, I remember I used to just, like, get Men's Health magazine, you know, and just, like, find a workout out of Men's Health magazine. And most of their workouts are right around the, like, 8 to 12 rep range. And it's because, like, those are, you know, they want to give you the results that result in the flashiest results, right? And so muscle growth is easiest to see. And so pretty much every basic routine you find on the internet or out there is usually just like a hypertrophy sort of like big routine, right? So this is sort of like the continuum that we're working with here. Now, NASM really liked this, but they wanted to get much more specific about it. And so we started looking at some other rules that sort of correspond with this, right? So you think about, like, strength, for instance. Well, if you're only doing 1 to 5 repetitions, do you think that you're going to gain a lot of strength going to the gym? And let's say you just, like, you lift really, really heavy, and it's like, all right, I'm going to set a new 1 rep max today, right? I used to be able to lift 180. Today I'm throwing 185 on the bar. Go throw that 185 on the bar, and then you go, and you lift it once, and then you set it down, and you're like, I did it, and you go home. That is probably not enough for growth. That is probably not enough to see improvement. So we also need to sort of tie this to our sets as well. So we're generally going to see that this is going to work quite well with anywhere from, like, 4 to 6 sets, right? So we're going to see 4 to 6 sets is going to correspond really well with 1 to 5 reps. Now, if you're going for muscle growth, the idea here is that you need to have a substantial amount of, like, you know, sets, right? And so we're going to see anywhere from 3 to 6 sets here. Now, we can drop those sets down because you know, what we're doing with dropping the sets down a little bit is when there's, like, 12 repetitions. So if you're doing, like, 12 reps, you can get away with a few less sets. If you're doing, like, 6 sets, then, you know, you probably want to go a little bit lower on the repetition scheme. And then endurance, you really don't need to do that many sets. We're actually going to see 1 to 3 sets for that, right? Depending on how you're going to try to build your endurance. So again, we've got sort of a new set of rules that we're working with here, right? And then we've got different intensities as well, right? So, like, strength is going to be 85 to 100% of your 1 rep max. So 85 to 100% of your 1 RM. And then here we're going to see that we want to work somewhere around, like, 75 to 85% of your 1 RM, right? And then we're going to see that we want anywhere from 50 to 70% of your 1 RM. And those repetition intensities correspond with those different ranges, right? Obviously, I can't do my 1 rep max for more than 1 rep. Otherwise, it's not my 1 rep max anymore. So if I'm lifting at 70% of my 1 rep max, I should be right around, like, the 12 rep range. And that's going to ensure that I'm working hard while also, like, adapting. And then lastly, we've got, like, rest periods to talk about here, right? So rest periods, we want to make sure that we're taking anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes of rest if my intensity is super, 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 super high. If I'm going for muscle growth, then I probably want to take somewhat limited rest. So that's going to be anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes. Now, NASM is going to say it's about 60 seconds. But I'm going to put this 1 to 2 minute marker down there because that's what most people actually believe. And NASM's starting to take a stance on that. And then here we're going to go, like, 0 to 60 seconds, right? So even, like, less than a minute if you can get away with it, right? So now we've got, like, a set of rules there. And lastly, we've got the exercise selection part of it. Like, what about the difference? Like, should I do a dumbbell chest press, or should I do a bench press, or should I do push-ups with my hands on a medicine ball, or should I do clap push-ups, which are very, very different. Those two are quite literally opposites. Like, which one should I do? Well, strength is best achieved with with stable exercises, which are going to be very, very heavy, right? And the same thing is true for hypertrophy, right? That's also going to be achieved through stable exercises, right? But we know that endurance is actually achieved by unstable exercises, right? And so that's sort of what we're looking for there. If we do an unstable exercise, we're going to end up spending, all this time sort of like working to get the body back in alignment. So these are some of the rules that we're going to see. Now, this is pretty good. You've got 3 very different type of workouts. Like, you could easily just take somebody on a routine here and just very, very easily do month 1 in a workout that looks maybe it looks like this. So here's your month 1, and then here's month 2, and here's month 3. And if you did that, you would actually probably end up with a pretty good, and then month 4, you just kind of cycle back down into the max strength side of things, and then you go back to month 5, and you go back into hypertrophy. And so month 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you can just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and create different routines every time, right? Like maybe I do bench press here, and here, for 30 straight days, right? I'm sorry, for 90 straight days. And then the next month I change it up. I do a dumbbell chest press, right? And I do the exact same progression for 3 months, right? So I could do that. I mean, look at how much variety there already is within like workout routines. But NASM isn't satisfied with that. They actually want us to have even more. Because one thing we're not talking about here is like, what about power? Where's our power side of things? Well, that is another thing that we have to look at, right? We do have to sort of look at the different rep ranges for power, and we need to look at like different intensities and different exercise selections. So we're going to go ahead and start today's conversation with exercise selection. We're going to take a look at NASM's OPT model. So NASM's OPT model is going to work in conjunction with our OPT template, and basically it looks like this. Right, it's the classic like staircase, right? And the idea with this model here is that you build a foundation here, and then you work your way up. So NASM's still breaking this down into 3 major categories, but they are doing it slightly different than what we just looked at, right? Like the version we just looked at is sort of like, honestly, everybody else out there kind of looks like uses that model that we just had, but we're going to break it down into 3 major levels here. And your levels, we got the stabilization level, the strength level, and the power level. Your levels are what indicate our exercise selection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just sort of lay that out myself here, right? So I'm going to make my own little staircase, right? So we'll go like this, and we'll go, and we'll put another one over here. Is actually working okay. So there's our OPT model, right? And this is just going to be a little bit easier for us to kind of mess around with, right? So this is where we're going to see all of these various rules, right? So this first level here, right? That's what we're going to see in this section. This is our very first level. This is what we call the stabilization level. And now suddenly this is all too big. So this is our stabilization level, right? And when I say the stabilization level, what I mean is like, this is going to inform my exercise selection. So when I'm picking exercises for clients who are in the stabilization level, I am picking stabilization type exercises. I've got all kinds of different exercises to choose from, right? I've got, look at this. I've got my warm-up exercises, which is going to be like my flexibility and my cardio stuff. I've got core exercises, balance exercises, reactive exercises. Actually, I'm going to officially move this down. NASM has kind of changed the OPT template. They've moved this down here. Now it's reactive / speed / agility plus quickness. I'm gonna go like that, actually. That's sort of a new update that they added, but you know, this is our movement prep. There we go. So we've got core exercises, we got balance exercises, we've got reactive exercises, speed, agility, quickness, and we've got total body exercises. We got chest, we got back, we got shoulders, we got biceps, we got triceps, and we got legs. Those are all of the various categories that you're going to find in your textbook. And they're all going to lay out and be slightly different versions of each other, right? Like, so should I do, you know, this stability ball chest press? You know, should I do this exercise here? Or should I do like a bench press? You know, this exercise right here that we're all probably pretty darn familiar with. That's an incline bench press, darn it. Can I just get a gift, please? Come on, help me out. Or should I do a medicine ball chest pass? You know, real explosive. Here's kind of a fun, weird version where you got to catch it, but you know, that actually does work pretty well. So these are all chest exercises, right? Right. This one here is a really good chest exercise, all about like being unstable, right? Here's a really good one that's all about being like real heavy. And here's a really good one that's all about being really explosive. So which one's the best one? Well, again, like that's not really how this works. In the same way that, like, you know, people ask me all the time, what's the best diet? You know, I'm like, there is no best diet. Right. Well, which chest exercise is best, right? Well, there's no best version, right? Like that's not really how this works, right? There is just different versions of exercises that result in different things. I will say this is best for learning how to do a chest movement. This is the best because you end up being so unstable and you learn how to stabilize. And so I would say this is the best for core strength. I would say that this is the best for learning how to do the exercise. I would say that it's the best for endurance, right? But this one here, I would say that this is the best one for strength. I'd say this is probably the best one for size and muscle growth. And then this one here, I would say this is best for rate of force production. This is best for force production, you know, strength. This is best for rate of force production, explosiveness, right? So that's sort of what we're going to see, right? They're just different things. They're just different flavors to be used at different times. So if we've got stabilization versions of things, we're also going to have strength versions of things, right? And that's going to be our second level here. And so we're going to go ahead and sort of see that this is, it looks sort of like this. This is going to come out like that. And this one's going to go down. And there's our strength level, right? That's how we're going to choose our exercise there. So we're going to choose a category of exercises, right? So this might be like a single leg squat, and this will be like a barbell squat, right? Very unstable, very stable. And then over here, we've got the power level, right? And the power level is like a squat jump, right? That's the very explosive stuff. So this side over here, this is our level, right? Like the level, go ahead and move this slightly. This section right here is our OPT level. And this determines, or this is, determines exercise selection, right? That's what we mean by, what did I do? That's what we mean by a level. Gosh darn it. Let me just start that over. So our level determines exercise selection, right? So that's what we are going to use our level for, right? It's going to help us choose which flavor, which type of an exercise I'm going to go with, right? So if I decide to go with a very stable version of something, yeah, that is going to be very good for my strength. If I decide to go with a very unstable version of something, that's going to be really good for teaching my client how to do it. So cool. Okay. So now we've got these big lists of exercises, which actually, by the way, if you guys saw Canvas last night, I put these up here again today. These are sort of our checklist. You go into your textbook, right? And you open up and go, these page numbers are not accurate, but if you go to your exercise selection chapter and you look under the category chest stabilization exercises, this is the list of exercises that you're going to choose for clients who are in the stabilization level, right? Those are the exercises you're going to choose, right? Should you do like a chest press machine, stability box? Again, it's going to be determined by the level that you're choosing. So that's what we're seeing here, right? We're going to see various different versions of this. Now, obviously, we've got the rest of the staircase here. Well, this is where we're going to see our phases, right? So this first phase is going to be the stabilization endurance phase, right? So this phase here, stabilization endurance, is going to correspond with the stabilization level. And so the stabilization level has one phase within it. Now, you'll notice that the strength level has, 3 phases within it. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of different ways to gain strength. Like NASM was not happy with just the kind of classic, approach of 3 different types of workouts, like we saw in the beginning today, right? Instead, they like the idea of, having 5 major categories of workouts, right? So this is where we're going to see what's called the strength endurance phase. So it's like you are going for a little bit of strength, but you are also building a relatively good amount of endurance. This is going to be muscular development or hypertrophy, right? And that's what we're going to see here. And then we've got max strength. Almost didn't fit. Max strength, which goes here. And then we've got power. And that's going to go here. So again, like this is all about like rate of force production, just like the power level. So the strength level is the only one that has 3 individual phases within it because there are different ways to gain strength. And that's where we are going to see different rules for our rep ranges, our set ranges, our intensities, and all that kind of stuff, right? So this section here, the phases, and actually this should say, I guess this should say levels. But the phases, this determines acute variables. Okay. And when I say acute variables, that's what I mean. When I'm saying like sets and reps and tempos and intensities and that kind of stuff, that's what I mean. That's actually what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the acute variables here. So your phases are where you get your rules to follow for reps. Your phases is where you get your rules to follow for sets. Your tempo that you're lifting the weight at, right? All of those things. So you think about that on the OPT template, right, that we're going to use. The exercise, this is chosen by your level. So if I go up here and I start filling this out, let's say I got a new client and I put them in phase 1. Well, phase 1, which is this right here, is part of the stabilization level. So I know right out the gate that I'm going to be choosing stabilization type exercises for for this whole column here, right? This entire column is all going to be stabilization stuff every single time, right? All of this is just the stabilization exercise selection. So we got to look at what some of those rules are today. But then all this stuff, the sets, the duration, sets, reps, tempo, rest, and then coaching tips, you can put intensity, right? All of this kind of stuff. This is all chosen by the specific phase. So there is going to be a difference between like a hypertrophy strength workout and a max strength workout. We are going to see slight differences there. So yeah, so that is what we're looking at today. So I've got it all kind of laid out in a unique way that a lot of you haven't seen yet. This is going to be sort of our overall guide to program design. You'll notice that I'm going to put different versions of things in here depending on, you know, the client, right? So there's sort of a different example here. Now I think I went with strength as an example pretty much every time. No, oh no, that's right. I started with stabilization. Sorry, I went stabilization, then into strength, then into power. So you take a look here. Here's our 3 levels of the OPT model. First one we've got is the stabilization phase, right? Stabilization level. First level we've got is the stabilization level. So the idea behind the stabilization level, it's a foundation, right? Like this is where we're sort of starting out, you know. So if that's the case, if I'm starting out, you know, building my foundation here, right? I'm not doing that because the middles. I want to make sure that I'm, you know, teaching my client how to do the exercises. Maybe they've never exercised before. I don't know that they know how to do a specific like squat or, you know, a pressing pattern. That's one other thing that I like to consider, by the way, when I'm thinking of program design. If I do have a beginning client, I do like to focus on the big 5 key movements in the body, like squatting, hinging, that's like a deadlifting action, pushing, which is like, you know, bench presses and chest presses and things like that, pulling, which is like rowing, and pressing, which is like, you know, vertically overhead. And one more I will say, if I get really, really, really specific, I break pulling into 2 categories as well: horizontal pull and vertical pull.
Can you please repeat it one more time?
Yes. So I've got squat, hinge, push, pull, press. Those are kind of the 5 key things. And if I get very specific, I'll throw one more on there. I'll go back to that pull. And pull is not just pull. I would then say vertical pull versus like horizontal pull. Because there is sort of a difference between using your lats to like pull you this way versus using like your rhomboids to pull you this way, you know? So I will get a little bit overly specific about that sometimes. So those are things that I often think of when I'm writing routines. If I'm trying to introduce a client to a new routine, I'll try to cover those 5 to 6 main movements there. And so like, I'm not just going to pick like, you know, let's say I've got room in my workout for 2 leg exercises, right? Let's say they're doing 2 circuits, okay? And the first circuit, and they're just going to do the same workout 3 days a week, right? So I'm building a circuit of, let's say, 6 exercises, right? And so I got like, you know, I'm trying to aim for chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs, right? I got 6 exercises in my first circuit, and I've got 6 exercises in my second circuit. Cool, piece of cake. I need to write 12 exercises on a page. That's a piece of cake, right? Well, when I also consider things, when I get a little bit more advanced about things, I also consider, okay, I want to make sure they are going to master a squat pattern, and I want to make sure they master a hinge pattern. So I'm not going to give them squats and walking lunges on their second circuit, you know what I mean? Because both of those are kind of squat patterns, you know? So I would say squat plus a deadlift pattern is going to be a little bit better, because then I'm covering both my bases. And then the same thing is true with the pulling. I probably would do a vertical pull for the first circuit and a horizontal pull for the second circuit. And then we don't have to really worry about like all the other stuff. The other stuff kind of falls into place naturally just by picking, you know, those different body parts, because chest is pretty much always going to be a pushing motion. Shoulders is almost always a pressing motion. Obviously there's the raising action out there. But yeah, that's one other thing that I consider, and NASM's starting to talk about that more and more, which is good, but they've never really taken a hard stance on that until recently. So they are starting to encourage that as well. But those are kind of the 5 key movement types out there. And so like, you know, I could even lay that out actually. That'll be kind of fun. I've never done this before. Let's do this one. So we'll say, you know, my favorite approach, we'll have like a push. Well, we'll start with a squat, hinge, push, pull, press. And then if I want to get really, really, really specific, like I said, I can also sort of look at this and say, like on the pull, I could say vertical. And then I could say pull horizontal, right? So there's me being a little overly specific. NASM doesn't do this. NASM just has a list as pull. But I like this version, so I'm going to do this version. So let's take a look. If I have the stabilization level versus the strength level versus the power level here, we're going to see different versions of each of these major patterns, right? So for instance, I'm going to need to make my font smaller, but for a squat in the stabilization phase, let's go with like 5, that should be small enough. Let's go with like a stability ball squat. Right? So that would make a really good stabilization level squat pattern. And then if I'm going in the strength level, I'll go with a barbell squat. That's a classic, you know, very heavy. Or I could pick a leg press if I wanted to. I hate the leg press personally, but like I could. And then here I'm going to go with squat jumps. Right? And there we go. Now I've got my 3, you know, different versions of this major pattern here, right? So I can just go ahead and grab this. I'm going to go ahead and move that over there. And then I've got hinging patterns next, right? So what about my hinge pattern? Well, if I'm going for a hinge, right, in the stabilization phase, I might go with like a single leg RDL, Romanian deadlift, for those of you who aren't familiar with that. So single leg Romanian deadlift would be a really good option for a hinge. And then regular classic barbell deadlift, you know, nothing fancy there, but it doesn't have to be, right? Strength often is the unfanciest. And then I'll probably do like a kettlebell swing in the power phase. That's going to be a really good one for, you know, a little bit of hinge action that is obviously very explosive, right? So then from there, I'm going to move into like my pushing action. So I might do, you know, a single leg shoulder dumbbell press. Right. So we'll do a single leg shoulder press there. Not so hard. Actually, not. This will fit a little better. SLDB, single leg dumbbell shoulder press. I don't quite have the room to kind of fit everything, so I'm using abbreviations to that. Single leg dumbbell shoulder press. For strength, guess what? Military press, probably my favorite. Right, that's your classic like barbell shoulder press. For those of you who have done that, it's literally just barbell straight overhead. I did them yesterday. My shoulders are dying today. And then here I might do like a push press. Right, that's a very explosive, looks just like a military press, except that you're just doing it with lower weight and you're doing it very, very explosively. Now, in terms of like vertical pulling, I will say stabilization in terms of pulling in general is sometimes hard to come up with. So my favorite version would be, we want an unstable vertical pull here. So I love like a kneeling lat pull down, probably my all-time favorite. I use that as my example all the time. And it's just a really good one because, like, you know, if you look at it, what you'll notice is like there is a lot of instability here. And so when you take away like having your knees on that pad, it makes it very difficult for you to keep yourself grounded. And so you have to use a lot of core strength or you're going to kind of pop up off the ground. And so that's sort of the idea behind like a kneeling lat pull down. And you can do this version as well. That's slightly more stable. But I love like a good kneeling pull down. I think a regular lat pull down is also really good, but that's what ends up in the strength level. So let's put the lat pull down. My favorite would probably be pull-ups, but I think this is going to be a good example here. And then for power, this is always very difficult, but we'll go with a medicine ball slam. Medicine ball slams, you think about it, it's this motion right here, right? Think about like what a lat pull down is, right? You're pulling like this. Well, imagine if you had a medicine ball slamming it down. It's the same motion, right? It's the same thing happening there in the shoulder. So it's the same. That is actually vertical pull there. Horizontal pull. I would say a really good one here would be yesterday the example we used was a single arm row. By doing one arm at a time on that row, you are making yourself very, very unstable. I could stand on a Bosu ball to make it even more unstable if I wanted to, right? For the strength, yeah, bent over row. The classic barbell bent over row. It's a really great one for you know, just really firing up the weight there. And then in terms of power, that is really freaking difficult. Horizontal pull in power is super tough to come up with because inevitably what you're doing, right? You think of it as like a throwing action this way. What's going to happen? I'm going to throw myself into the wall, you know, or like I'm going to throw a bar into my chest. I'm going to like smack myself. So I will say horizontal pulling in the power phase is really, really difficult. Pretty much the only one that I ever think of is like a speed tubing row. Ooh, I'm not sure that's true. Speed tubing row is probably the best option there. And speed tubing rows look really weird. It is a very odd looking exercise, but it is very, very good. That's a regular tubing row. No. Yeah, see, everybody's just doing regular tubing rows. Oh man. Let's try power. Yeah, nobody ever has an example of this. You know what? Actually, there we go. We could also do like a rack pull. This would also be relatively explosive. You just gotta make sure you don't slam the bar into your chest and bruise yourself, you know. But I would put this under the power level as well. Where do you actually do the exercise, guy? So you can see he's kind of dropping it back down. He's letting it kind of rest in between, right? That way he's taking the tension off. So this is a regular bent over row. See how he's got control the whole time? Oh my God. He's got control the whole time. Are you seriously going to do like one rep on your demo? God. And then there's this version here, which is very explosive. Up and then he lets it back down. Very, very explosive. I would put that in the power level as well. But the speed tubing row at least is a different exercise, you know? So I'm going to put that down instead today. And then for pressing motions, again, we're going to kind of go, oh, shoot. I put push instead of press. Sorry, guys, hold on. I completely did all my shoulder stuff. Those are pressing motions. I'm so sorry about that. I completely just went off on my own thing here. Pushing motions are horizontal. So that would be a stability ball, chest press, not a shoulder press. They both have the word press in them, obviously. And then for our push, we'll go the bench press. Of course we are. That's going to be the best example. And then for power, a medicine ball, chest, pass. That explosive, sort of explodey style chest exercise. So those are sort of our three flavors that we've got there. God dang it. For the various different sort of major actions that are out there, right? That's how I kind of like to write it. I mean, honestly, guys, if this was the only list of exercises that you had in the gym, this would actually do you pretty darn well over the course of a very, very long time. Now I will say these are not always my favorite versions of exercises. So like for instance, you know, I don't love a lat pull down as much as I love like pull-ups. I don't love speed tubing row. I do actually probably like a good like rack pull or something like that. And then I do think that it's missing out on like maybe a little bit of like raising action. And then we don't see any arm stuff in here, right? There is no biceps or triceps associated. These are major movements, right? These are our sort of main compound movements, right? They're not meant to be elbow stuff, you know. But if I want to have like, you know, curl and like just tricep press, so like, you know, I would probably put, you know, my very optional stuff out there, like a single leg bicep curl, and then, you know, just a 2-leg bicep curl planted, you know, you're on the ground planted, you know, that's kind of classic. And then I'd probably do like a single leg tricep extension, or maybe like actually I'd probably do a ball tricep extension, it's my favorite. And then I'd probably do like a cable tricep extension. And then there are no arm stuff for power. Arm stuff doesn't exist in the power phase because it's single joint exercises, which is why like these categories kind of don't exist as like priorities. Like you can teach them to your client. I think they in fact, honestly, I like to use them as like recoverability exercises. But they're certainly not a priority. Arm work is not a priority for health, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of a detailed breakdown. That's our exercise selection stuff, right? So let's kind of go through this really quick and take a look at the various different, you know, what we have to do now is we sort of have to look at this chart that we made, understanding like the levels on one side and the phases on the other side, right? And now we've got to look at all of our various acute variables. What are our acute variables? Well, we've got exercise selection. That's going to be here on like the level side of thing. And then we are going to get into sets, reps, tempo, intensity. Oh, wait. Tempo, rest, and intensity. And those are sort of the things that we need to be able to pick. So we're picking from 2 columns, right? We're picking our exercise selection column, and then there are rules for the sets, reps, tempos, intensities, and things like that. And that's sort of what we are trying to get memorized. This is the kind of stuff that you're going to be asked. This is about 50% of your test. They have to pass in order to get your exam, you know, to pass your NASM exam. You need to know, you know, they're going to say which the following rep ranges would be most appropriate for a client in, and then they'll say power. So you need to know what your rep range is, and it should be 8 to 10, you know, and that's sort of how that question stuff works. So let's take a look at the stabilization side of things, right? Because then we also need to look at the other half. I forgot about this. I forgot I need to do this as well. The other side of things that we need to look at is we need to look at flexibility, which is going to be, warm up, which is going to be flexibility and cardio. We need to look at your movement prep. This is not going to fit. Hold on. I need more space. Moving this all the way here. So we need to look at our warm up, which is going to be flexibility and cardio. We need to look at our movement prep, which is going to be core and balance. We need to look at our athletic section, which is going to be reactive / SAQ. And we need to look at, and actually that's warm up / cool down. Those are actually going to be the same. And then we need to have our resistance section. And the resistance section is going to be your total body, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and the legs. Okay, we're just going to make this whole thing smaller. And that's the next thing that we got to consider on our exercise selection. So we need to memorize what stuff falls into which category. That's all of program design kind of coming together here, right? So if your client is in the stabilization level, right? The idea here, the main adaptation, our goal of this level is to prepare the body for the more demanding stuff that's coming in the later phases, right? This is your foundation. And if this foundation's not strong, the rest of this is not going to be strong, you know? So it only has one phase in it, which is the stabilization endurance phase, which is where you're going to focus on exercise selection that is based on usually very multiplanar exercises, meaning that like you do some sagittal stuff, you do some frontal stuff, you do some transverse stuff, right? It's proprioceptively enriched environments. That's a very fancy way of saying unstable environments, wobbly environments. And that allows for optimum recruitment of all of your muscle stabilizers. So when it comes to your flexibility stuff in your warm-up, you are going to choose what we call corrective flexibility. Corrective flexibility is our overall category, okay? And it's named that because it primarily focuses on correcting muscle imbalances. So what type of stretching that's out there, what type of stretches really improves mobility the best? Static stretches. So we are going to put a little bit of SMR, self-myofascial release, and static stretches. And that's our exercise selection. So then when it comes to the cardio, what type of cardio are we focused on? Well, this is our foundation, right? So we're only going to do stage 1 cardio. And stage 1 only has one zone within it. It's around 65 to 75% of your heart rate max. So these are all of our rules. If I have a client who's in the stabilization level, I'm going to choose some type of SMR exercise. Let's go ahead and replace this here. What do I mean when I say SMR? Let's go with foam roller on the lats. Okay. So I'm going to do, 1 to 3 sets of that. I'm going to delete that and just say 1. And I'm going to do, instead of, just static stretches in general, I'm going to do a ball lat stretch. And I'll pick 1 set there. And there we go. Now, this is literally something I could just plug directly into somebody's workout, right? This is a placeholder, right? I'm replacing the major category, SMR, static stretches, with actual choices. I made the choice to do the lats, and I made the choice to do 1 set instead of 3, or 1 to 3. And I do 30 seconds each, because that's just the rule of the way it is. For cardio, I need to pick a piece of cardio equipment. Let's say the treadmill. 1 set, 5 minutes here. And now I will say this is the warm-up section. So with the warm-up section, you actually want to be below zone 1. So I just have it listed as 50 to 60%. That's what most people agree is the warm-up. NASM actually does not give us a warm-up range, which I think is ridiculous. They've literally never done it all these years. It's just below, it's just sub zone 1, is what they'll say. But yeah, 50 to 60 is what most people agree. But here's our actual cardio. So let's say we go with the cardio, right? So I'm going to go ahead and that should just say cardio. I think I must have left this from last time. So we're going to go treadmill here. 1 set, 30 minutes. And I want my coaching tip, my intensity. I tell my client I want them somewhere between 65 and 75% of their heart rate max. In reality, I wouldn't do that, guys. I wouldn't leave this at 65 to 75% for my client. What I would actually do, sorry, 1 second. I'm getting a text from Jessica. 82. I don't think that text is meant for me. I would actually put the range, right? So I'm gonna go punch in my carboning calculator here. Whoops, that's the wrong one. They friggin' change after all these years. It used to always be the first result. So I'm 34, resting heart rate of about 62 beats per minute on average. Not right now. But 65 to 75, that's the 143 to 155. So I'd actually say heart rate of 143 to 155. That's what I would do with my real client, by the way. But obviously I can never teach you guys that because I'd have to make a new person every single time we do it. So we're just going to leave that. And also that's not how you're going to be tested. When you go to take your test, they're going to say, what's the percentage? So you're going to put that. But in reality, guys, probably put the numbers for your client. So that's how we write a warm-up. Pretty easy, honestly, right? Now for movement prep, oh, and this is going to be laid out. I've got to make some slight adjustments here today. This is going to be laid out as core, balance, and then they're putting reactive in here because that's how we used to do it. But movement prep, core, balance, and reactive. Well, for your exercise selection, you're choosing a core exercise, a balance exercise, and a plyometric exercise. Now, remember, what level are we currently in? We're in the stabilization level, right? So you're going to do core, and it's hyphenated, stabilization exercises. You're going to do balance stabilization exercises. You're going to do reactive stabilization exercises. What do I mean when I say it? What makes something a core stabilization exercise? Why don't I just do sit-ups? That's a core exercise, right? Yeah, sit-ups are 100% a core exercise. They absolutely are. But they're the type of core exercise that focuses on moving your spine through whatever given range of motion. For core stabilization, if I've got a client that I'm trying to build a foundation of, I actually don't want to teach them how to move their spine. I want to teach them how to hold their spine in place. Whoop. I wouldn't say sit-ups are bad for the back. I do think so. You know what? This feeds directly into what I'm talking about right now. So here's the thing. You'll hear people say that sit-ups are bad for your back. I don't think that's necessarily true as a blanket statement. I think that if you have proper core stabilization, you'll be able to move your spine through any range of motion pain-free, and you're not going to injure it. But most people, one thing that we know is that most people tend to have a really strong movement system. You know, they're used to crunching out of bed in the morning, right? Crunching to get out of the car, right? They have a really well-developed movement system, but they have a really poorly developed stabilization system. They're really bad at using their transverse abdominis, which is there in the middle, right? That's holding the spine in place. They're pretty good at using their rectus abdominis, which is around the outside. So when somebody who doesn't have proper stability tries to move their spine through like a full range of motion, yeah, they could end up getting hurt, right? Yeah. So I wouldn't say it's bad, but I wouldn't start a beginning client with sit-ups ever. I would start them with core stabilization exercises. Things like planks, which doesn't move the spine, or side planks, a bird dog. McGill sit-ups probably my favorite. Any version where they are stabilizing and holding their spine in place. One of my all-time favorites that NASM doesn't have, I love this for extremely obese clients, but let me see if I can find this.
What about crunch it?
Same thing as a sit-up. Yeah, sit-ups are just larger range of motion, but they're a strength exercise. They're not stabilization. I wouldn't do it with beginner. Resistance band lateral walk core exercise. Oh, yeah, it's like this, but that's not actually it. Oh, that's so close. The problem with Googling this the way I want to, everybody, I've got a million pictures of people doing lateral band walks, which are great exercises, by the way. Oh, hold on. I think I found it. Okay, so he's doing a pal-off press, which is so close. So pal-off press, you can see he's not moving, right? His spine stays away. He's moving his arms, but he's not moving his spine. And so this is a good core exercise because that band wants to pull him back this way. So he's resisting that, stabilizing his core. I love to do that and move laterally. I love to do like just have my client grab a band, go here, they hold, and then I have them walk like this. And the whole time they're resisting the twist back. It's an anti-movement. It's an anti-twist. probably one of my all-time favorite core exercises for obese individuals, because that way they don't have to get onto the ground to work on like side planks. But like this is kind of a side plank, if you think about it, right? His resisting that twist. So that would be, I would put a Palloff press, which isn't in your textbook, unfortunately. It's a great exercise. The Palloff press, I would put that as a core stabilization exercises. Crunches or sit-ups, hanging leg raises, Russian twists, back extensions, all of that stuff is focusing on spinal movement, which is great if you have good, proper stability. But it's not where we start, right? We're going to get into that down here when we get into the strength level. Take a look. Strength level, core stuff. No, down here. Strength level, core stuff. That's where I can do my crunches. That's where I can do my sit-ups. That's where I can do my hanging leg raises. So different flavors, right? Different flavors of these exercises. If you have a client in the stabilization phase, the type of core exercise you should pick should be based on not moving the spine, which is why, look at this list here. Look at every one of these exercises. Marching, right? That sounds like marching like up and down, but marching as a core exercise, when they're referring to that, that's actually this. She's not moving her spine. She's marching her legs up and down. She's learning how to brace her abs and hold them in place. What about the two-legged floor bridge? Maybe a little bit of like hip movement, you know, but for the most part, her spine's kind of staying in one. She's actually kind of overdoing it a little bit. You don't need to have this arch here. She's going a little bit of exaggerated range of motion. You don't need to do that. But yeah, spine basically stays in place. So it's limited spinal movement, right? Planks, ball bridges, the bird dog, which we call the quadruped opposite arm, opposite leg raise, right? Anything that doesn't move the spine. Then we got balance training. Well, what about like the single leg Romanian deadlift? I used that as an example earlier. I obviously am a huge fan of the single leg Romanian deadlift, right? This is a great exercise. But if I'm working on balance with a client that I'm trying to build a foundation of, again, I am working on anti-movement more than I am working on movement. This is the problem with like what people think about exercise. People think exercise is all about movement, and it is. But proper movement starts with proper anti-movement. It starts with proper stability. You need to make sure that you know how to stand before you can learn how to. We always say people say it all the time. You got to learn how to walk before you learn how to run. It's like, well, we need to learn how to stand before we learn how to walk. You know, like you got to stay put and hold your body in alignment before you start like marching on, right? So our balance stabilization exercises or any balance movement that doesn't move the balance leg. So it's little to no movement of the balance leg. So maybe I do a medicine ball throw and I stand on one leg. Somebody's got a medicine ball and I chest pass it back and forth. This is a stabilization level balance exercise because this leg is not moving, right? Single leg bicep curls, right? Now you might be thinking, wait. Single leg bicep curls, that's a resistance bicep exercise. Yeah, it is. It actually is. That sometimes exercises fall into two categories. If I'm using it for balance in the stabilization phase, I'm going to do this version. If I'm using it for my arm exercise later, I'll do that version, which is why a lot of trainers actually skip balance training when they're in the stabilization phase, because they're going to address that stuff later kind of naturally, you know, doing a shoulder press, not moving my balanced leg. I can move all this stuff, right? I can move anything else in my body. As long as I'm not moving this leg, it's a balance stabilization exercise. So single leg hip rotation, balance stabilization. Now, if I go like this, and I go to touch the ground, I've got my knee is bending, my ankle's bending, my hips are bending, right? Now I'm moving my balance leg. That's going to be appropriate for a client in the strength level. So for the stabilization level, I'm not moving my balance leg. And for the plyometric exercises, I am not moving upon landing. This one's probably the hardest one to visualize, but plyometric stabilization exercises or any explosive movement, any plyometric jumping movement that doesn't move once you land. So really, it's not even about the jumping. It's actually more about the landing. Again, we're learning how to stand before we learn how to walk. We're learning how to walk before we learn how to run. Well, I'm learning how to land before I learn how to jump. And I'm learning how to jump before I learn how to, I don't know, backflip. I don't have a third one for that one. But yeah, so for reactive or plyometric stabilization exercises, they are movements that hold my landing. So again, take a look at my list here. Squat, jump to stabilization. Now I'm going to go ahead and open the strength list here. And let's go to plyometric strength exercises. Oh, too far. Squat, jump. So the stabilization version is the squat jump with stabilization. The strength version is just the classic squat jump. It's the difference between, I always say this is my favorite analogy, but it's the difference between an elephant, you know, that thing, and an elephant seal. They sound similar. They are two completely different, what a weird looking animal. They are two completely different animals. They have nothing to do with one another, right? You know, elephant versus an elephant seal. They sound similar, right? Squat, jump with stabilization, squat, jump. Similar, not the same. So any reactive explosive movement that's focused on landing and holding that landing is going to be a reactive stabilization exercise. So let's do it, guys. Let's take a look at our rules here, right? Because this is the stuff you have to have memorized. Uh-oh. Okay. I thought I broke one of the wheels on my chair. Let's take a look at our rules here, right? We've got core stabilization exercises, balanced stabilization exercises, and reactive stabilization exercises. So you're going to do anywhere from 1 to 4 sets, 12 to 20 repetitions at a slow tempo for 0 to 90 seconds of rest. And then these are both 1 to 3 sets. Now it says 12 to 20 reps on the balance. That means 6 to 10 each. There's literally, I don't know why they even have it listed as 12 to 20. There is not a single balance exercise in your book that is not single-sided. So when they say 12 to 20, that means 6 to 10 on each leg. Slow on the tempo, 0 to 90 seconds of rest. 1 to 3 sets, 5 to 8 repetitions. We really got to drop the reps down. This is a beginner client, right? We're not going to go be like, all right, let's do 500 box jumps today. Be a bad choice. So we do 5 to 8 reps. And then you always want to hold your landing for 3 to 5 seconds. And then 0 to 90 seconds of rest. So if I am a trainer, and earlier I replaced just the category with the appropriate exercises, I need to pick what exercise I'm going to choose. I'm going to go with the classic core stabilization exercise, the prone iso abs, more commonly referred to as planks, right? For my balance stabilization exercise, I'm going to pick the first one here on the list. What do I got? This was the first. What's the first one? Single leg balance. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I knew that. Single leg balance. By the way, single leg balance is literally this. That's the whole exercise. Very exciting. It's a beginner client. Makes sense. That's where I start. It's just a chance for me to kind of get the body turned on, right? And then for my reactive stabilization, we're going to do that squat, jump to stabilization. So now I need to pick somewhere the appropriate number of sets, 1 to 4, 1 to 3, or 1 to 3. So I'm just going to go 3 because that fits all of them. So we'll go 3, 3, 3. I need to pick 12 to 20 reps. Now I will say planks are an isometric, which means you don't actually do rep. You do like one long rep, right? So I'm just going to put 30 seconds here because that's going to correspond to about the 15 rep range on average. Single leg balance, we're going to go with 10 each. And for my squat jump with stabilization, let's go with 5 of those. Tempo, I get to leave that alone. That can all just stay listed the way it is because there's no range there. It's just you choose it. Well, I guess actually this should say isometric. And then here, I'm going to pick 0 seconds here, 0 seconds there. Let's go with 60 seconds. And there we go. Now, I replaced my ranges with choices because I'm the trainer. I got to build the workout the way I wanted to. Does that make sense, everybody? Al and Carlos, how you guys doing? How you guys holding up?
Yeah, kind of.
Everything's cool.
Love it. Feeling solid?
Good,
Yep,
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, not bad at all.
Cool. All right.
Screenshots.
It's a lot. I mean, like, you know, these are all, I mean, look at how many freaking rules there are. By the way, we haven't even gotten to the big chart yet. These are all of the rules on one giant page. Look at how much freaking writing is in here. You know, I had to look at how small. I had to go with a font of like 8, I think. So obviously there are, I guess it's 11. There's a lot of rules out there, but remember, like, you've got 9 months to get them memorized. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of time to work on this, and we review it. I know a lot of you guys are like, yep, we're good. You know, you've seen this before. We do it every single module, although we don't do it like this. This is kind of a fun way to go through it. All right, let's take a look at the SAQ stuff. What about the explosive speed, agility, and quickness? So this is where it gets a little bit weird. But like when you're in the stabilization level, there is no such thing. Like normally it's like, okay, your stabilization, you have core stabilization, balance stabilization, reactive stabilization. SAQ doesn't quite work like that. SAQ is sort of an all-encompassing term for speed, agility, and quickness. So we got 3 things there. So of course, NASM is going to break it into 3s because that's how they like to do it. But there's no such thing as a stabilization speed exercise, a stabilization agility exercise, and a stabilization quickness exercise. It doesn't work like that. Instead, the way it works is it's kind of like cardio. You got stage 1, which has zone 1. So clients who are in the stabilization phase, they are going to have speed drills pretty much only. Clients who are in the strength level, they're going to get speed and agility. So we can do both of those. And if we have a client in the power level, we can do speed and agility and quickness all together. So really, the only thing we're going to choose for an SAQ client is just a single speed drill, or 1 to 2 speed drills, right? So these are exercises that involve limited horizontal inertia, that's limited agility, and limited unpredictability, that's limited quickness. So by limiting those 2 things, we're left with pretty much just speed. So really, it consists of speed drills primarily. You want to throw a little agility in there, it's probably not going to hurt your client. And that's why there is a little bit of wiggle room here. But generally, that's what they're focused on. It's like a speed ladder or a cone sprint from point A to point B. Now, in terms of resistance training, this is where we are going to choose our resistance. And what level are we in? We're in the stabilization level currently. So resistance stabilization exercises. So what are our 7 categories of things? We got total body. We've got chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and legs. It kind of goes similar to like what I built over here. The only problem is I don't have a total body exercise up here. So we'll go with similar versions here, but I'm not going to pick off that list directly. So I need a total body stabilization exercise. Let's go to my little list here, right? Let's say I look at my book, and I'm just going to grab the first one. So I go total body stabilization. There we go. Ball squat, curl to press. I'll put that right there. Let's go with my chest stabilization exercise. We'll go to ball dumbbell chest press. Right? Let's go with the back stabilization. We'll go to the standing cable row. Let's go with my first shoulder exercise, single leg scaption, my favorite. Let's go with the bicep, single leg dumbbell curl. Let's go with the tricep, supine ball triceps extension. And let's go with that leg stuff. This is probably not the best choice, but we'll go with a ball squat. It's a little awkward because we already did a ball squat up here. But just to show you guys how easy this is, right? I literally just picked the first one out of every category. In real life, if it were me, I'd be choosing these exercises and I build it the way I want to build it. But there we go. Like that's how I did. I just picked stabilization type, total body, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs. Now, if I were writing a leg day, I wouldn't be picking stuff like this, I'd just pick a whole bunch of leg stuff, right? If it was leg day, then I would do a ball squat, maybe a single leg Romanian deadlift, and then like a lunge to stabilization, and maybe a step up to balance, right? So now that's leg day, you know, but that's not, today we're just giving you guys the overall total body approach. I don't necessarily think you always have to do total body. That's not what I'm trying to communicate. But I do want you guys to be able to see all the various different versions. So we almost always build total body routines on program design days because they're sort of the easiest to understand. So now I need to pick somewhere between 1 and 3 sets. So I'm gonna go with, let's go with 2 sets. 12 to 20 reps. Let's go with 15. Now I will say this is a single leg exercise, so that's actually going to be, we're going to go with 8 each, so that'll be 16. Single leg dumbbell curl, that's got to be 8 each. And the rest of that's all double-sided, so that works. Tempo, we leave it at slow. That's how we do it. You know, there's no range there. And then 0 to 90 seconds. So I'm going to do this as a circuit. 0 seconds. We're in the weight loss mod, right? And then we'll take 60 seconds at the end. And there we go. So now, if I did my cool down, guess what? This is going to be true for all 3 levels. You're pretty much only going to focus on corrective flexibility. So in the stabilization level, honestly, it can look exactly like your cool down. The only thing that's different, but it'll look exactly like your warm up is what I meant to say. The only thing that's different is that you should always reverse it. You should start with cardio and then do stretching instead of doing stretching and then cardio. And that way, like, you're kind of easing your way out. You think about, like, it's like 2 sides to a pyramid. You're easing your way out. So I'm gonna go up here, and I'm gonna go up here, and I'm gonna go ahead and take my my foam roller bit here. I'm sorry, I'm gonna take the treadmill first, scroll down. I'm gonna replace that with the cardio, boop. And then I'll take that little bit of SMR. Where to put it? There. I'm gonna put that down here. And there it is. So now, watch this. Let's take all of the stuff that we built and put it all together. Freaking thing. And I don't know why that's not formatted properly. Take a look, guys. You can see, I would say this looks exactly like our OPT template, right? We built ourselves a workout by literally just replacing the stuff, right? Like, that's what you're doing in your head, you know? You're basically just taking these things and, you know, replacing them with your choices while following NASM's rules. And if you do this, you are applying all of that PFT 105 stuff, all of that physiology that we've learned, all of that, you know, best practices stuff that we've been going over for the last 6 weeks. You do all this, it all comes together all at once. You are applying physiology perfectly without having to be like, how much ATP are they going to generate? You know, without having to think about all that. You know, like, it's physiology paint by numbers. That's what I always like to say, right? You are applying physiology perfectly, and all you're doing is following the instructions that you have memorized in your head. You're just following all these rules. This is a pretty darn decent workout. This is going to work really well, and this should last about an hour. You know, probably a little longer actually. Looking at it. Oh, especially with the cardio there. Wow. Delete the cardio. Put cardio on its own day. But yeah. Any questions about how I did all of that? Questions, comments, concerns?
Good.
Love it.
Actually, I have a question. how many hours is the max that you can get, like, do workout?
So
Uh,
I don't know how to answer that actually. I love this question. I don't know. I don't get to say that very often.
Because sometimes
Arrogantly.
because sometimes I realize that, like, I've been 2 hours or sometimes 2.5 hours, I'm at the gym, I'm doing my workout with the cardio, not like without it.
So I definitely wouldn't do that. So here's at least I wouldn't do it without doing it properly. So you can do, like, if your workout should be around 60 minutes.
Yeah.
That's how long a session should be. If you go 90 minutes or 2 hours, you probably are going to run into glycogen depletion, and you start to run into what I like to call junk volume
Okay.
or junk training, where it's like, think about like junk food, right? Why do we call it junk food? It's empty calories, right? It doesn't have very much value. It's got calories. I'm sure there's some B vitamins in a McDonald's hamburger, but it's like, do we consider that to be a good source of B vitamins? Nah, right? So when you do like a 2-hour workout, what ends up happening is you end up depleting your glycogen stores, which means your intensity falls through the floor.
Okay.
You won't be able to work very hard because you're completely tapped out. And you might feel like you're like, I'm working hard. Yeah, it feels that way up here. But the reality is, like, if you were to track your intensity, and you're probably doing strength first, cardio second, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, I do 10 minutes like biking to warm up a little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but yeah, dedicated cardio. Yeah.
And then after, when I'm done with my exercise, with my resisting exercise and everything, then I go back to do cardio 30 minutes.
Yes. So here's the thing. You may feel like, and you are burning plenty of calories in that 30 minutes. But are you actually like pushing yourself enough to improve your cardiovascular system? Probably not. And you might be thinking, I'm working really hard. And you are working hard. But again, remember, we always have to speak this language, right? There is a difference between hard and intense.
Yeah.
Those are different things, right? So when your glycogen stores are empty, your intensity falls. It just does. There's no avoiding it, right? So if you are going to do a workout like that, if you are going to dedicate 2 hours, which again, I don't necessarily recommend. I think that you are much more likely to run into overtraining problems. And you're also lowering your intensity a lot. But one thing you can do to stem that, like my buddy Sam right now is training for an Ironman. He's training 4-5 hour sessions, because like he's got to be able to swim a mile and a half, so like, and then he's got to be able to ride 110 miles on a bike, right? So like, obviously his training sessions are really, really, really long. So it's really important to make sure that you are, replenishing your nutrients intra workout, like mid workout. So if your workouts are going to go over 90 minutes, honestly, I think if they go over 75 minutes is what NASM recommends. 90. Most people will say 90. You need to have some type of, like, you should probably be getting your protein shake in there at the same time. Because here's the other thing you got to remember, right? What do you do in the gym? You damage your muscles. You're not building muscle in the gym. You build muscle when you leave the gym, right? So if you're exercising, you do a bunch of muscle damage, and then you go do cardio. It's not like your body's waiting to like start the repair process. It's going to try to start the repair process as soon as it can, but it's all being used while you're in the middle of doing cardio. So your repairing is happening less efficiently. So you're delaying how long your body can repair that muscle.
So you're telling me that it's not good to do cardio after the workout?
Not if the session's like 2 hours long.
Okay, but if
Because
it's
it
like
delays
1
how long.
hour.
Like would you wait 2 hours to eat after working out?
No.
Well, you are. Right?
As soon as I'm
You're
done,
like, I wouldn't do that. And it's like,
I'm just like going to get
yeah, but you know what I mean? Like that's but that's what you're like, well, no, I wouldn't do that. And it's like, you have been doing, that's what you're doing. Like you're delaying how long you're going to start eating because you're doing a bunch of cardio afterwards, right? Your body's not waiting. It's gonna, it tries to get started. So I'm not saying it is necessarily bad. If you are trying to train as like an endurance athlete or something like that, I think that that can be an effective way. If that's the time that you have blocked in your schedule and you're like, look, it's not like I can do 2-a-day workouts. If that's not a, yeah, great. Yeah. If that's the option you have available to you, Marjan, I would say do it.
Mhm.
But make sure you do it right by trying to get like drink a protein at the 60-minute mark. You want to make sure that you're getting some nutrients in, a little bit of carbohydrates to keep your blood sugar levels like stabilized.
Okay.
Otherwise, you run at risk of like kind of spinning the wheel and not making any progress.
Yeah, no, I don't want to risk anything, especially like now. But the only thing, okay, so if I do 1 hour exercise and then like 30 minutes added for the cardio, that I will be fine. That's like a normal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're getting to the 90-minute marker there. So you're like right at the line. If you've got a protein shake waiting for you in the car, then I say go for it.
Okay.
But like honestly, like there's nothing wrong with like drinking your protein. Like let's say you have a protein shake with you, keep it in your bag, go do
Mhm.
your strength training. When you're done, you go do 30 minutes of cardio, drink it while you're doing your cardio, you know?
Wow.
There's nothing wrong with doing that. Because then you're at least making sure that you're kind of filling everything back up. Or a smoothie, honestly, would be even better option because then you'd have a little bit higher carb content. I know that like if you're trying to watch calories, that does make it more
Yeah,
challenging.
yeah.
But like
Or like a
that
protein
carb
bar,
content,
like a low protein bar, low sugar protein bar, high protein, low sugar.
yeah, that might work too. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of bodybuilders, guys, like powerlifters and stuff, I say this all the time, but they'll do like Sour Patch Kids. They do like candy because it's just sugar
Oh.
and that keeps their intensity high because they're like doing like a 2-hour strength training session, you know? Now I'm not recommending doing a 2-hour strength training session, but like when you get to a super, super high level, eventually the stimulus that you need just needs to be ultra high. So they end up doing like these like really intense, super long sessions. I don't think that's applicable to 95% of people out there, you know, but the 5% like super bodybuilders who have been training for, there's actually a really interesting, there's an article by Eric Helms, the guy we watched in the video yesterday. There's a really interesting, or 2 days ago, there's an article by Eric Helms talking about like how to know when you are an advanced athlete versus when you're a beginner.
Mhm.
And a lot of people would say like, oh, well, it's when you can bench press your body weight or when you can do this or when you can do that. That's how you know when you're advanced. But he took a really interesting approach to it. And he said that a beginner is somebody who can adapt pretty much every week. Like you make some type of improvement on like a weekly or bi-weekly basis. You know, maybe you're adding 2.5 pounds to the bar. It's not a lot of weight, but it's still progression.
Yeah.
And then an expert is somebody who progresses much, much, much more slowly, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, right? They progress more slowly because they've already reached like a very high peak. So getting beyond that is just much more difficult, you know?
Yeah.
So let's say you're trying to improve your vert, right? You can jump and you're jumping and you're touching like you have 12 inches in the beginning, 13 inches after just a little bit of training, 14 inches after that. And then eventually it's like 14 and a quarter, 14 and you're making much slower progress. The more of an expert you are, the less you're going to progress quickly because you're not getting any newbie gains, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting way to look at it too.
Okay. I kind of know, I kind of figured out like what to do from now on. Because
Yeah.
sometimes I'm losing the time.
Yeah,
I'm not, but like, yeah.
What I recommend in general is I think that you want to, like when it comes to gaining strength, my general rule of thumb is you want to create some version of a workout routine that will get 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. However long that takes you, I don't care how long it doesn't, that I'm not telling you how long the session is. All I'm telling you is that for strength and for muscle size, 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. So there we go. There's one recommendation. And then I think that a total of 150 minutes of cardio per week at moderate to low intensity or
Okay.
75 minutes of high intensity cardio per week. So you put those two recommendations together, that's where I put
And
you.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
150 minutes total accrued cardio time if it's
Mhm.
moderate to low intensity, 75 minutes of total accrued cardio time if it's high intensity.
Okay. And the total body workout, what was that? The first one?
10 to 20 sets per body part per week.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so let's look at the strength stuff here. Now that we've got a pretty good idea of how this exercise selection stuff works, the rest of this will move a little bit more quickly, right? Because the strength stuff is the same thing, just slightly modified. So let's look at our strength list. So the idea behind the strength level, you know, the strength level here, right? The idea behind the strength level is that we are focused on either getting a little bit of endurance while also being able to increase force production, get some size with increased force production, or just get lots and lots of force production, right? That's the true like max strength approach. So the main adaptation here is force production. That's kind of our through line, right? So there's the increased ability of the body to be able to manipulate the body under heavier loads and move through complete ranges of motion. So we're going to break this down into 3 phases. We've got the strength endurance phase, which is all about stabilization a little bit further and overall increased strength. We've got hypertrophy, which is all about maximal muscular size. And we've got max strength, which is all about maximal force production. So now in our warm-up section, we are going to have a new category. Last time we had corrective flexibility. This time we're going to have active flexibility. Active flexibility is going to be where we use active isolated stretches in addition to our foam rolling. So last time we did like a little bit of foam rolling and we did a ball lat stretch, right? So we did foam roll the lats. And last time we did a static ball lat stretch. But this time I need to choose an active isolated stretch. So I'm going to do an active ball lat stretch, right? And now when I do active stretches, those are any stretches that move me through ranges of motion for 1 to 2 second pauses. So I would take my arm up and then relax, take it up and relax, take it up and relax. I'm contracting and relaxing for my stretches, right? So sometimes, and that's sometimes people call it that. Sometimes they'll say it's a contract, relax stretch. Treadmill, because that's the one we decided to pick, right? And then for cardio, now I'm doing stage 2 cardio, which means I can take my client into zone 2 sometimes. So maybe I do 1 minute in zone 2, my heart rate gets really, really high. And then I recover for 3 minutes in zone 1. That's 4 minutes total. If I did 5 rounds of that, that would give me a 20-minute cardio workout, which is perfect, right? Remember I said 75 minutes accrued per week, right? At maximum. So if you did 20 minutes, 4 days a week, right? That's about 80 minutes. You're actually overdoing it a little bit. I go with 1 to 3 sets here. So I'm just going to go with 1 set. We'll go with 1 set here because I'm picking 1 to 2 sets. Now I hold each rep 1 to 2 seconds. I'm going to leave that alone, but I need to pick somewhere between 5 and 10 reps. Let's go with 10 reps. I only picked 1 set, right? And there we go. Now I wrote a very decent warm up for my client in the strength level. So now I move into the movement prep section. I get into the core, the balance, the reactive. So I'm going to choose core, and I'm in the strength level. So strength exercises, core strength exercises. I'm in the strength level. So I'm going to balance strength exercises, reactive strength exercises. What makes something a core strength exercise? Well, last month, it was all about not moving the spine. This month, it's all about moving the spine through a full range of motion. So I'm picking core exercises that involve a full concentric, eccentric range of movement of the spine. Crunches, sit-ups, hanging leg raises, Russian twists, dragon flags, I guess, really obscure stuff, right? Anything where I'm moving my spine, right? Through a wood chop, right? anything that moves my spine through a full range of motion, that's going to be a core strength exercise. Balance strength exercise, these are balance exercises that move through a full range of motion. So a single leg squat touchdown, a single leg Romanian deadlift, a step up to balance, a lunge to balance, right? These are all things that actually were leg exercises last month, right? Like in the stabilization level, they were leg stabilization exercises. Honestly, you can use pretty much every one of those as a balance exercise in the strength level. So what used to be your workout has now become your warm-up or your movement prep, right? So if I did a lunge to balance, right? That's my balance leg, which is my right leg, had to move through a range of motion, right? Or, you know, a single leg squat touchdown, right? That's a balance exercise. I'm moving my balance leg. And then I've got plyometric strength exercises. These involve moving upon landing. So last month we landed and we stayed put. This month we're moving and we're getting right into the next rep. So instead of squat jump to stabilization where I jump and I jump and I hold, now I'm jumping up and down again. Right? So look like I'm dancing. Right here, Eminem in the background. So yeah, so those are plyometrics that involve full ranges of movement there, right? So for my core strength exercise, let's do some sit-ups or crunches, right? For my balance strength exercise, let's do a single leg Romanian deadlift. And for my reactive strength exercise, we're going to do repeat squat jumps. All right, 2 to 3 sets. Let's go with 3 sets for everything. 8 to 12 reps. Let's just do 10 for all of them. There we go. Medium tempo, repeating tempo for the explosive one. And then we'll take 0 seconds of rest, 0 seconds of rest, 60 seconds of rest. And there we go. I just wrote a movement prep section for a client in the strength level. All of the strength level, by the way. It would apply. This could be used in strength endurance. It could be used in hypertrophy. And it could be used in max strength. All 3 of those, this would work really well. Doesn't matter what phase they're in, it's the strength level. For SAQ, well, these are going to be exercises that involve a little bit of greater horizontal inertia, but we're still trying to pick exercises that limit unpredictability. It's a big fancy way of saying now we can do speed because we did it last month, but we can build on that foundation, and agility, but we're still going to leave quickness out of it. So I'm going to do agility and speed drills in the strength level. Now for my resistance training, this is where I've got to get into the specific phases. We are going to see 3 different phases here, right? We've got the strength endurance phase, hypertrophy phase, and max strength phase, right? So in terms of exercise selection, they're all within the strength level. And remember, this determines your exercise selection, right? The level is what determines that. So my choices are going to be the same, but the reps and the sets are going to be very different from one another. So you can see that here. Now, I will say, when I say that the exercise selection is the same, that is true for the most part. But in strength endurance, I always like to think of, this is phase 2. But I always like to kind of think of it as like phase 1.5, because these 2 phases go really well together. Strength endurance and hypertrophy have a lot in common. They're all, I said hypertrophy. Sorry, strength endurance and stabilization have a lot in common because they're all about building endurance, right? We see that word listed in both of these. So with that, when we're writing this, we're actually going to do 1 strength movement first and 1 stabilization movement second. So last month, my total body exercise, let's go back up to that workout that we built, was the ball squat curl to press. So I'm just going to go ahead and come straight down here, and I'm going to go ahead and keep that. I'm sorry, actually, no, I'm not. Sorry. So there's my ball squat curl to press. So I'm going to pick an exercise very similar to that. We're going to go with a dumbbell squat curl to press this month, because the total body exercise, we don't have to do a pair. It's almost impossible to do, to pair those up. But then I'm going to choose a chest strength exercise, something like a bench press. And I'm going to pair it with my chest stabilization exercise, which was the ball, dumbbell, chest press. So if I pair those exercises together, that ensures that I'm working on endurance because I'm doing not 8 to 12 reps, I'm doing 16 to 24 reps. This is an ultra high repetition range, which is really good for endurance. But I am still working on the goal of force production by getting my heavy strength exercise done first, and then burning out the muscle with my light stabilization exercise second. So for back strength, let's go with like a barbell bent over row. And then for my back stabilization, let's go with like a single arm dumbbell row. For my leg strength, let's go with a barbell squat. Actually, let's go with a barbell deadlift. And for my leg stabilization, oh, I already did the single leg. No, hold on. We will go with a barbell squat. And then we'll go with Bosu ball squat, something unstable, right? It's a little bit squat heavy here. You know what? In fact, let's change this to like a lunge curl to press. There we go. So now I need to pick my sets. So this has to be equal because it is superset. So let's just go with 3. And then 8 to 12 reps each. Let's go with like 10 reps there. And we'll just keep it really simple. Kind of in the middle, Tempo, 2-0-2 for my strength movement. So medium tempo for strength, and then a slow tempo for my stabilization movement. And I'm always going to do 0 seconds after my first exercise, and then up to 60 seconds for my second exercise. And there we go. Now I've written a great strength endurance routine. Got a little bit of stabilization still, but I am lifting heavier for the first exercise. All of the first exercises in that superset situation are very heavy strength versions. Now, hypertrophy, I can actually just strip all that away and just do the strength stuff. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to say, we're going to go ahead and copy and just keep this 1 month to the next. But we're stripping away the stabilization stuff. So now I just need to pick a shoulder, bicep, and tricep. So let's go with a military press. Let's go with a preacher curl. And let's go with a tricep. We'll throw a machine in here. Machine tricep extension. I never do any machine examples in class. So here I do want to go up with the sets. So I'm going to go ahead and take this to 4 sets this time. So anywhere from 3 to 5. Right? I'm going to go ahead and drop my reps down. Let's take it to 6. We'll really start to get like right on the line there, right? Medium tempo, and we'll take 60 seconds of rest each time. There you go. There's a classic total body hypertrophy or mass building workout there. And then finally, we get into max strength. Guess what? I can literally keep all of these exercises exactly the same. I don't even have to change it. In the real world, I probably would, but I don't have to. So I can take the sets up 4 to 6 sets this time. So let's go with 5. 5 sets. This is gonna be so heavy, right? And then the reps, let's do 3. Really, really, really heavy. Tempo, I'm gonna try and lift it as fast as I can, but it's so heavy, it probably won't be that fast. And then let's just take 3 minutes of rest every set here. Now, this is gonna be a freaking 2-hour workout. 5 sets at 3 minutes there. That's 15 minutes of rest. So that's 15. There's an hour of rest in these first 4 exercises. So this probably wouldn't happen in the real world. Or what you would do is you would split this up. Maybe do these 2 to 3. This is your Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, right? Like you would actually probably do a training split. This is also probably really long, to be honest. So I know that my example today is probably not a real life example because this workout would need to be, literally, this is an hour of rest and that's 45 minutes of rest. So this workout is an hour and 45 minutes long before lifting any of the weights. At 3, that's 15 minutes of rest every single one of these exercises. So in the real world, this probably wouldn't work out exactly like this. So then we've got our cool down here. Cool down, we can just go ahead and keep it exactly the same as our corrective flexibility was earlier from the stabilization level, because the workout's over, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and literally just use the same cool down for every single client, well, same cool down rules for every single client. A little bit of static stretching, the workout's over. The reason we have a difference between active stretches and static stretches is because static stretches can kind of shut your muscles down. That's really bad for strength. Doesn't apply to the stabilization level. It's great for the stabilization level, but it's not so good for strength. So we had to invent active stretches, and active stretches have been shown to not reduce strength. But if my workout's over, everybody can do static stretches. The workout's over, So that is the strength level. Any questions about those phases? Any questions about the difference between those?
Is it cool down considered as the time that you put for your workout too?
No. Same thing with your warm up. Your warm up and your cool down.
The warm up and the cool down is not considered. That's what, because I was adding everything to it. Why?
Sure. I mean, but if you're doing 30 minutes of cardio afterwards, I mean, that's your workout's still, I mean, 2 hours long is a lot, right? But yeah, but if you are adding like your warm up and your cool down to that time, yeah, that's probably not taking away from your intensity,
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
All right, thank you.
Alan and Carlos, how you guys feeling about all that? How about the strength stuff? See the difference between the phases and all that? The paint by numbers.
Yes.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, let's look at the power stuff. So the power stuff, this is going to be our, this is the peak, right? Like this is the really intense stuff, right? So as we're looking at it, this is where we've officially, we learn how to move here. We learn how to increase our force production here. Now it's all about rate of force production here. So we're learning how to lift all that big heavy weight, but much more explosively, right? So the main adaptation here is increased rate of force production. So this is going to focus on motor unit recruitment. More motor units you get, more explosive you get. We want to focus on motor unit synchronization, so they're working together and explosively. And we'll work on firing rate, so that happens fast. So when it comes to our warm-up, we're going to do functional flexibility here. This consists of what we call dynamic stretches. So functional flexibility is the overall category, and then that's your tool bag. And then the tools within that tool bag is a little bit of foam rolling still, just like every other level. But this time, instead of doing static stretches or instead of doing active stretches, we are doing dynamic stretches. And dynamic stretches are basically the types of stretches that move through full ranges of motion while using your muscles to do it. So like arm circles, oh my God, I'm so sore. Arm circles, for instance, is a really good example. Arm swings, leg swings, even body weight squats. It used to be a strength training exercise. I would now consider that to be like a stretch for a very advanced client, right? Because we're on the power level. So we're going to go with SMR for the lats again, right? So we're going to go foam, roll, the lats. Remember, this is the same client, right? So we've just been working on these lats for 5 months at this point. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 to 10 dynamic stretches. Now you'll notice that we've got a little asterisk here, and it says cardio is optional. So the reason why cardio is optional is because if you do a circuit of all of those like dynamic stretches in a row, let's say you do like a dynamic circuit like this. Look at our dynamic stretch circuit here. So you do something like this. You do like a little bit of walking. He's kind of holding these a little longer than I would recommend. And then you do some hip openers, right? And you kind of walk it forward, lateral hip openers, right? This guy's kind of funny. Frankenstein walks or toy soldiers, whatever you want to call them. Walking lunges, right? So if you were to move through all of those exercises in a row, like bop, 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 right? What that's going to do is that's going to feel like cardio, you know? So we can go ahead and I'm just going to delete that cardio section and we'll go with arm swings, which is a good stretch for the lats. And then we'll go with the walking lunges with a twist. Walking lunge with a twist there. That'll be a good one. We'll do 2 sets of that. And we'll do 15 reps each. By the end of that, your heart rate's going to be high, kind of like cardio, you know, kind of like the gentle cardio to get you warmed up. And I'd probably pick 3 to 10 exercises, so I should give it one more. Let's go with prisoner squats. 2 for 15. There we go. So from there, I'm going to move into stage 3 cardio. Stage 3 cardio is where I can get into the zone 3, right? It's 86 to 95% heart rate max. So if I were to do 1 minute in zone 3, followed by 1 minute in zone 2, followed by 1 minute in zone 1 to recover, and then reset that cycle, that should take about 3 minutes. So if I do 5 sets of that, that's 15 minutes of ultra high intensity cardio. This ultra high intensity stuff is going to be maximize my calorie burn in a very short period of time. And because the intensity is so high, it is going to ensure that I generate a lot of EPOC. So I'm going to burn more calories outside of the gym than I did inside the gym. And that is going to be a very effective approach to a very limited length of cardio time. But it is also very advanced. So it is reserved for, you know, clients who have worked their way through all of the other types of cardio. So then I got to pick my core, my balance, my reactive stuff. I'm in the power level. So that's going to be core power, balance power, and reactive power. So what the heck is a core power exercise? Well, we went from not moving our spine in stabilization to moving our spine in strength. Now I'm going to move my spine fast. So these are going to be core exercises that involve a full range of motion of the spine. That's the same as strength, but at functionally applicable speeds, which is NASM's big fancy way of saying fast. So you're going to move the spine fast now. So that's like a medicine ball crunch with a throw, or you know, a speed wood chop, something really explosive. Balance power, that's going to involve like jumping while landing on one leg. So balance exercises that improve your joint deceleration. So you're going to jump into a position and then hold and stabilize and balance your landings, right? So if I were to jump from one leg to the other, maybe like a lateral ice skater, right? Jump from one side to the other and hold myself there, and then jump to the other side and hold myself there, right? That would be a balance exercise because I'm balancing on one leg, but then I'm stabilizing afterwards. So I'm balancing. And then reactive power is all about, it's like reactive and power, they're kind of the same thing. So it's like power plus power. It's as absolutely explosively as possible. So something where you are really just moving super explosively. So let's take a look at the power exercise list here. You can see ice skaters, single leg power step ups, proprioceptive plyometrics, box runs in both the frontal and sagittal line. Those are actually, I love box run steps. These are great, super explosive, you know, movements, right? Where you're literally just as fast as possible. I hope this guy goes fast. I'm gonna be so annoyed if he's slow, because you can do this slow as well. Come on, guy, do the movement. Just never does the exercise. The 3-minute video. Just show me the freaking thing. There we go. 3 minutes for that. So yeah, there we go. There's a really good demo on how fast we want to sort of work on those sprint mechanics. So that's a really good plyometric, like, you know, it's power plus power, right? So let's go with a medicine ball. Pull over row super explosive core exercise. It's basically a crunch at ultra fast speeds, right? Right? Big, explosive, fast crunch, right? Now, I will say he's taken forever to reset between every rep. I do not recommend that. But that big explosive crunch there, yeah, there we go. There's our core power, right? Balance power, let's take a look at the list. Multiplanar hop with stabilization. So you're basically going to jump once in the sagittal plane, once in the transverse plane, and once in the frontal plane. So you go here, and you're going to jump, and balance, and then you're gonna jump and balance, and you're gonna jump and balance, right? Sagittal, frontal, transverse. And then reactive power, like I said, we'll do the box, run, jumps, sagittal. You can do that frontal as well. So I'm supposed to pick somewhere between 2 to 3 sets. Let's go with 3 sets. 8 to 12 reps. We'll go with 12 on everything. Super explosive tempos, except for the balance one. Obviously, we want to be able to hold our landings and actually balance. And we'll take 0 seconds of rest until the end. We'll do a 60-second rest period. Now, for SAQ, we can do all of it. We can do speed, we can do agility, and we can do quickness. In stabilization, we only do speed. In strength, we only do speed and agility. But now I can do all 3, speed, agility, and quickness. And then for the resistance section, this works just like strength endurance did, where, you know, think about our formula for power, right? Like power equals force times velocity, right? So because that's force times velocity, right? This is very much going to be our max strength stuff, right? That's where we're really focusing on, you know, lifting relatively heavy. And then velocity, that's where we're going to get our power exercise. So if we've got our max strength exercise that's responsible for the force production, we've got our power exercise that's responsible for velocity. If we put them both together, we are increasing our overall power output exponentially. So I might do a total body power exercise all by itself. I could do like a barbell clean, you know, that'd be a really good one. And you know, we want to make sure it's really fully total body. We'll do a clean and jerk, right? That's a full boom, straight overhead, really explosive total body movement, right? For my chest strength, I'm going to go right back to that bench press, just like we used last month, right? And then for my back exercise, what did we use last month? Barbell bent over row. So there we go. I'll go with the barbell bent over row. And for my leg strength exercise, let's go to barbell squat. So all 4 of those max strength exercises, or all 3 of those max strength exercises, are going to address the force production side of the power equation. But the power stuff has to be addressed as well. This is the power level after all, right? Oh, shoot. Oh, I goofed up when I made this thing originally. This should say, this says strength endurance. This should say power. There we go. I definitely copied and pasted that last time and didn't notice it until just now. So here's my power stuff, right? So I'm going to do a chest power exercise. Let's do a medicine ball chest pass. For the bent over row, let's do a speed tubing row. And for the barbell squat, we'll pair that with a squat jump. So those are 3 That's a chest power exercise, a back power exercise, and a leg power exercise. So now I need to pick my sets and my reps. So let's go in the middle again. And I'm going to do pretty high intensity for my strength movements. We'll go in the middle with 3 reps. And for my power movements, we'll go with 10. Now, you should take a little bit of like 3 to 5 minutes of rest if you're doing it by itself. So we'll go with 3 minutes here. And you should take a little bit of rest between sets. It's 1 to 2 minutes of rest between the first exercise and second exercise, and then 3 to 5 minutes of rest afterwards. So we'll go like that. That's a lot of rest. You know, that's 16 minutes per set. So this is 45 minutes right there. So again, is this a real life workout? Probably not. Or it is for a professional athlete who is, you know, refueling in the middle of their workout and, you know, taking lots of recovery time. And then again, for my cardio or for my my cool down, we keep it exactly the same. You know, it doesn't have to be any different because corrective flexibility applies to all cool downs. You know, the workout's over. I can do static stretches in the power level. I wouldn't want to do it in my warm up because it would shut my muscles down. But it's fine for my cool down. So you can see today we sort of replaced all of our exercise choices. We see those choices in our head when we're writing it onto a blank OPT template. And that's the stuff that you got 9 months to kind of memorize, right? And all of those rules, if you want this laid out in a slightly different way, every one of those rules that I just laid out can be found in this sheet that I attached in Canvas and in today's email. And I think I put it in yesterday's email as well. But you take a look right here. When you're choosing your warm-up stuff, you got flexibility and cardio. If you're in the stabilization level, you follow all these rules right here, you're going to write a pretty good warm-up. Follow all these rules here, you're going to write a pretty good movement prep. So I'm going to be bringing these sheets to school. Well, I say that I'm going to be bringing them. I'm going to print them tomorrow so everybody can have a copy. And we're going to go ahead and sort of choose some exercises tomorrow. You guys are going to kind of get on the page and build some workouts. So when we get together at Sochi, we're going to have some blank OPT templates, and everybody is going to build routines, whatever level or whatever phase you want. We're going to kind of build those routines and work our way off the page. And you're just going to plug your numbers in, right? And we'll tie it a little bit to assessment stuff as well, because that's the other part of this. One thing we didn't look at today, all of this would work really well. But like, should I have really chosen the bench press every time? What if my client has really excessive like arms fall forward because their chest is really tight? Well, yeah, I can still do bench press, but on my shoulder exercise, where I was doing like a military press, maybe instead I should have done a cable external rotation. And that's the type of shoulder exercise. And that's where we start to put posture and all of the rules that we follow together into one thing. That's the very advanced approach. That's what Mo's going to really work with you guys on very intensely. But that is about it. So I know we had to kind of slam this together today. Again, like I said, I don't think the weight loss class, unfortunately, kind of makes us do all of this in one big lesson, which I think is a really hard way to absorb it. Al and Carla, that was a lot of rules for one day. Normally, in all 3 of the other program design classes, we have a day dedicated to flexibility. We have a day dedicated to movement prep, a day dedicated to resistance. But it is always nice to kind of, for those of you who have been through this class before, and you guys have seen this, it is actually kind of nice to see it all at once, because you can see the progression, you know? You're seeing something sort of go through, you know, the overall life cycle. Yeah, it's a lot of information all at once. If this is your first, that's why like I generally tell people this is the hardest mod to come into. I think it's the hardest mod to start in, because like you have to, it comes to this big day where it's all at once. Normally we break it down day by day by day. But again, you are going to see it in 6 weeks. We're going to do all of this again. 6 weeks after that, we're going to do it all again, right? So hopefully it gets clearer and clearer and clearer. Any final questions before I kick all you guys out of here?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So me working out at the gym, because I stay there for almost like 3 or 4 hours in the gym working out, is that bad?
Again, I don't like to necessarily say good or bad, but I will say like you are probably going to be pretty glycogen depleted.
Okay.
You might be you're working really hard, but I'm not sure that you're working intently or
Hmm.
intensely. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like let's look at a marathoner, for instance, right? Let's say a marathoner, let's say Eliud Kipchoge, right? Fastest marathoner in the world. You can run it just around 2 hours, right? Do you think that his pace at the 2 hour mark is the same as his pace at the 10-second mark?
Mm,
Probably not, right?
probably not. Yeah.
So is he improving his speed running in after 2 hours of training? Probably not.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one thing about like ultra long workouts. A lot of times less is more. So I think you can make as much workout time as you want to meet your goals. But like I said, the biggest, most important rules to follow, it's not so much about more time spent in the gym, it's about better time spent in the gym, right? Which is where if you follow the rules that I think are golden, I think the most important rules you can follow, 10 to 20 sets per body part per week. So 10 to 20 sets per body part per week, and either 150 minutes or 75 minutes of cardio per week. And if you follow those two rules together, you're gonna be in a good spot.
Okay, I got you.
That could take 90 minutes a session, depending on how you do it, you know?
Okay.
And if you're taking really long rest periods, and that's why you're in the gym so long, because you're lifting really heavy, you know, that makes a lot of sense. But I would make sure that I'm getting an intra workout, like meaning mid workout.
Yeah.
Time.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pretty much take a protein shake for me. The ones that are in like the bottles and stuff.
Yeah.
Have it.
I mean, look at like pro athletes, right? I mean, they're training for, you know, hours upon hours upon hours, but they have like Gatorade and food and, you know,
Yeah.
getting calories in to keep their intensity high, you know?
Okay. Okay.
I mean, look at a friggin' football game, you know? I mean, they only end up playing an actual like 10 minutes of football every game, which is crazy. But like over the course of 3 hours, you know? So like that length of time, they're gonna lose intensity if they don't eat anything. So that's why they have like Gatorade and electrolyte drinks and stuff like that on the sidelines.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm gonna calm down then on being at the gym as long as I am.
Yeah, a lot of people, honestly, less is more a lot of times.
Okay, okay.
Somebody said this, I'm trying to remember how does this phrase go? Less is more, but you also need enough, or something like that.
Yeah.
So while I say less is more, if you go to the gym and do one set and then leave, yeah, like that's also not going to work, you know? But yeah, 10 to 20 sets per body part per week, and 150 minutes of cardio.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna be at the gym today. That's why. So I'm just gonna go for like maybe like an hour and a half.
Yeah. See, I don't work out today. I mean, I do. I'm gonna go play Ultimate today, so it's like a cardio day for me. So, you know, and I lift 4 days per week, hour at a time, and that's enough for me to get my 10 to 20 sets in.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I said, I think mine for me is like losing the time. I lost the time, like pretty much more than just like doing workout all the time, like the whole time. You know what I mean? And then
Right.
I was adding my warm up session and cool down session all together. So I was like, oh my God, it's too much. Is it like too much? Or
I mean, that's the thing. It's a big time commitment, you know. But I love working out, but like, you know, I don't have, you know, 12 hours a week to spend in the gym. I work. This is like a part. You know, I've got a lot of I got a lot of jobs. You know?
of course.
I got all my clients to train. You know, which is part time. I don't have enough clients to consider that like full time, but I'm trying to launch a business right now. Like I would never have, how are you gonna find the time? You got kids? How the hell?
Yeah, I have, and that's why I do everything first, and then after when I'm done, I say, okay, now it's time for me to go to gym, because
Yeah.
I know how it goes,
Yeah.
to make sure that I have that time. So anyway, but thank you. It was very helpful.
Yeah.